Terrorism, Islamism, Racism, and Deception. Looking backwards in denial. Muslim denials and deception are tools being used by many Muslim leaders to fool unbelievers and their believers who trust and follow them. Is irjaf the new word for terror?
Again, are these negative perceptions fair? The extremists quote from the Quran. Isn't terrorism in the Quran?
The Quran does speak about terrorism, but it uses a very specific word. In Arabic, it's called irjaf. And this word irjaf means crooked action to instill fear and violence in people, but that fear and that violence is based on hypocrisy. So according to the Quranic paradigm, terrorism or extremist behavior is really an acting out of hypocrisy.
Irjaf comes from an Arabic root, rajafa. It appears in the Arabic Qur'an with the meaning of earthquake, as seen in Surah 7:78 and 7:91, while Surah 73:14 states, Yom tarjufu al-ard wal-jibalu. One day the earth and the mountains will be in violent commotion. The Quran does speak of terror, arahabu wa aruhubu. These two specific Arabic words are used as found, for example, in Surahs 3:151, 8:12, 33:26, and 59:13. Quote, "You are stronger than they because of the terror in their hearts sent by Allah. This is because they are men devoid of understanding." Unquote. And the next one, quote, "We shall cast terror into the hearts of the unbelievers." Unquote. The Arabic Qur'an says it is the book that makes things clearer. Al-Kitab al-Mubin or Kitab Munir. Islam's religious leaders and Islamic believers subscribe to a jihad. They strive still to misinform unbelievers, those outside Dar al-Islam, using propaganda based on denial, falsehoods, and deception. Two modern scientists, Niels Bohr and Richard P. Feynman, have left us with thoughtful, wise insight that might address some things within Islam. Niels Bohr said, "Every great and deep difficulty bears in itself its own solution. It forces us to change our thinking in order to find it." Richard Feynman stated, quote, "The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool," unquote. He also said, quote, "Reality must take precedence over public relations," unquote. The Holy Quran says unbelievers are not wise. They are people without knowledge, and they are people without understanding. Surah 8:65 has the Prophet being told, "O Prophet, rouse the believers to the fight. If there are 20 amongst you patient and persevering, they will vanquish 200. If 100, they will vanquish 1,000 of the unbelievers. For these are a people without understanding." In the Arabic it begins, Ya ayyuha an-nabiyyu harridu al-mu'minin al-qital. Al-qital, which is translated as fight, actually also means the killing. There are many contentious, combative exhortations in the Holy Book that are central to the revelations and doctrine presented in its teachings. Many Muslims rely on disputatious denials of these teachings, although evidence and proofs of the negatives they hold are clearly to be seen. It is a defense mechanism Muslims use to shield themselves and ward off painful truths. Then there is always deception, dissembling, and prevarication via misleading propaganda. As the Quran says, quote, "Those who know," unquote, "rely on deceptive propaganda and the abnegation of believers as they block out unmistakable, evident, and manifest realities that became patent within the belief system." Accordingly, as we can see, the call upon the Prophet in Surah 8:65 is a clear call to provoke and incite. Harrid wa tahrid. Is it possible? Are we wise enough to understand why many Islamic believers become inclined to provoke and incite violence? Al-murjifuna. The calls out to terrorism evident in the Arabic Qur'an are clear. Less clearly evident, in translations especially, is the racial bigotry and color racism with prejudice that was extracted from the Arabic Qur'an. The outlet was exported globally with injurious effect. White and black slaves early on experienced the injustice and injury that accompanied Muslims who introduced color-based racial bigotry and prejudice. Islam led to Muslim abuse of many individuals. History records how they relied deceptively on the making of white and black eunuchs, exploiting them as specially prized possessions. Other injustices along racial lines followed the prideful superiority early Muslims arrogated to themselves using the Arabic Qur'an. Muhammad ibn Jarir at-Tabari is a universally revered authority in Dar al-Islam for his tafsir or commentary on the Quran, Jami al-Bayan and Ta'wil al-Quran. Tabari has left records from the 9th and 10th century of the vainglorious, prideful arrogance found in his teachings and other Muslim leaders that are yet to be rescinded. Imam Tabari stated, quote, "An unjust imam is preferable to no imam," unquote. Under Islam, a declared jihad requires an imam say-so or imprimatur. Consider this, an example of oppressed individuals resisting injustice in the flat world of the 9th century when Islam was dominant. In the 9th century, East African black slaves revolted against the oppression under which they were slaving to produce sugarcane for Muslims in Iraq. We know of this because the same Tabari recorded the event in his book of history as well. Injustice and deception hungs Islam. Consider this article from July 2016, in which someone said, quote, "Muhammad himself emphasized the essence of universal human equality, breaking key social and economic taboos at the time, banning slavery and allowing all human beings the freedom to worship one God and giving them the ultimate choice to do so," unquote. Is it true that Muhammad banned slavery and brought freedom and equality? We hear from believers that true, Islam is neither violent nor racist. Is that true? Or are these only denials that shield more pugnacious propaganda that provokes and incites violence? At-tahrid. Then there is Surah 3118 on racial bias and equality. What the Arabic Qur'an reveals and teaches in Surah 3118 with this ayah, message, revelation, mirror, and sign directly and accurately states, quote, "O you who believe, do not cause or allow yourselves to become insane, mad, crazy, and confused by mixing up your colors via intimate womb relations with outsiders and those who are not of your kind," unquote. This directly stated Arabic Qur'an prohibition directed at a sexual color-based womb intimacy all but vanishes in the authoritative interpretative translations delivered to outsiders. It remains clearly evident to readers in the Arabic language nonetheless, and it does so in keeping with Surah 41:2-3, Surah 43:2-3, and others that emphasize the importance of reading and understanding the Quran in the Arabic language. An example of incitement and provocation is cited in Islam and the Clash of Civilization. It says this, quote, "By Allah, if you disbelieve in democracy, secularism, nationalism, as well as all the other garbage and ideas from the West and rush to your religion and creed, then by Allah, wallah, you will own the earth and the East and the West will submit to you." Islam led to the birth and cementing of a bigoted, negative, prejudicial mindset that came from the Middle East. Muslims misused color and language starting in the 7th century. In error, the world then was seen as flat, and slavery was both endorsed and expanded by Muslims. Their outlook went on to infect global views that trampled on individual rights and sovereignty. The New World and a new message can be seen to have evolved to correct injuries inflicted by Islam's vainglorious believers. There is no need to appease, coddle, or indulge Muslims in Islam, the failed way of life. Muslim leaders increasingly turn to deception in efforts to thwart and overturn the retooled, better, inclusive, more wholesome message. A message many believers assail with malice as only, quote, "garbage ideas from the West," unquote. The new message has evolved, coming into existence with the opening and expansion of the New World. The new message holds several truths to be self-evident. For example, when Islam was clearly dominant, Slavery remained a standard practice across their world. The New World was unknown to them and people of the book. For centuries, they all believed the world was flat. Muslims did not know many truths then, and Muslims and Islam were far from perfect. There are few studies that specifically research color racism and prejudice as it originated in Islam. Most often the topic of color racism and prejudice is submerged in studies on slavery. Opinionated results can be misleading. One such study said this, quote, according to one undoubtedly spurious tradition, the Prophet said, be careful in choosing mates for your offspring and beware of marrying the Zanji, for he is a distorted creature. Another similar tradition quotes the Prophet as forbidding intermarriage with blacks with the words, do not bring black into your pedigree. The same idea is expressed in a verse cited by Masudi, do not intermarry with the sons of Ham, for they are the distorted among God's creatures. Unquote. The actions of Muslims on the record historically, and as seen in Surah 3:118 for example, does more to confirm rather than cast doubt on the veracity of these traditions and outlooks. Islam and Islamic believers lie on a bed of thorns. Jalasa al-Islam al-Kitab. Believers show themselves to be blind to what is evident in the teachings and precepts of a more wholesome new message. In the book Surrender, Peace in Islam, Sacrifice and Freedom, the author drew from John Stuart Mill's on liberty. Quote, over himself, over his own body and mind, the individual is sovereign, unquote. Then again, quote, unless an individual has the freedom to think for himself and speak his mind, the freedom to make his own life choices, and to form and enjoy his own taste, and the freedom to associate with others, he cannot be truly called free. The only legitimate justification for limiting his freedom, moreover, is to prevent him from harming others, unquote. In the 7th century, the Arabic Qur'an came saying, Inna huwa illa dhikrun wa Qur'anan mubin. This is no less than a message in a Qur'an making things clear. However, Islam has proven on the record to be injurious to numerous individuals. A new better message is working to bring justice to every individual, no matter what gender, race, color, or language. This is in keeping with Allah's words in the Arabic Qur'an. وَلَا يَظْلِمُ رَبُّكَ أَحَدًا. This is in Surah 18:49, quote, and the Lord will treat no individual with injustice, unquote. Would it be blasphemy to say that Surahs 2:106, 3:57, and 24:34 were preparing the world to be open to this better way? Allah, the Almighty, predestines, formulates, and legislates with power and foreknowledge. The Qur'an says so over and over. Inna Allaha huwa al-qaadiru fahuwa ala kulli shay'in qadirun. Was the new message foretold in the Qur'an? Islamic believers state things with their mouths that they seem to deny in their hearts. They say Allah is almighty, but then they engage in heresy, stating that Islam is the final message of God for all time, as if Allah could not deliver a new message or something similar when He willed. In fact, Surah 2:106 states such a thing, quote, none of our revelations do we abrogate or cause to be forgotten, but we substitute something better or similar. Knowest thou not that Allah hath power over all things? And here again we see the expression, Inna Allaha ala kulli shay'in qadirun. One wonders how a believer would answer the following. Does an almighty God need a special person or prophet to deliver a better message? A key contrivance has been spread by religious leaders since the death of the Prophet Muhammad. It states, the Quran is Allah's final message to the world. For over 1,000 years this has been held to be true across the world of Islam. However, it remains deceptive propaganda. Why? Because it is a misrepresentation that is projected into the words of God in the Arabic Qur'an and its teaching. Surah 2:106 illuminates it as a misleading deception. Muslims love to say Islam is perfect, but that is neither sustainable nor true. It remains true that Islam is not perfect. وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الظَّالِمِينَ, meaning quote, and Allah loveth not those that do wrong, unquote, according to Surah 357. And then in Surah 6143, Tabi'uni bi'ilm in kuntum sadiqina. Inform me with knowledge if you are truthful. In conclusion, individuals today see honor in the new concept of human rights. The known world has grown and expanded. It is no longer seen as flat. We know more and know better. Slavery is and was inhumane, injurious, and an injustice. Slavery has been discredited and has waned. Color racism with prejudice faces censure. These things and ideas are not garbage, as was stated earlier. They are truth. They are also not immoral false doctrines, al-qaadiru al-batila. They just list things which Islam and Muslims neither knew, looked to promote, nor moved to champion back in time, when the belief system was influentially ascendant across the known world. To continue, many Muslims seemingly choose to remain blind. They continue to look backwards. The hereafter will come in due time. The world has moved forward seeking betterment in this life, not with eyes glued to the past. Many Muslims are overlooking the self-evident realities that have come with the new, better, more wholesome message. It does not defame based on color, language, race, or gender. It is a message that seeks to unify and respect all individuals rather than differentiate in religious hubris and demean racially.